and welcome back. As you can guess by the title, we're doing another recent reads. I want to get all of the books that I read this year in, so we're doing 27 books this time. So I hope you guys are ready for a long one. If you didn't watch my previous recent reads, the way these go is I give 1 to 2 sentences describing the book. I'll give a thing I liked and a thing I disliked. But this time I decided I'm also gonna do my star rating for the book, cause, you know, why not? Alright, let's get right into it. The first book we're gonna talk about is Foraged by Blood. So this one is a novel inspired by Nigerian mythology that follows a girl living in hiding on her colonized land due to her magic. Her life takes on a new trajectory after an incident with her mother. I gave this one a 2.5 stars. The thing that I liked most about this was like all the elements of mythology. I don't know a lot about Nigerian mythology, so it was really fun to learn. Like there's one scene in particular I remember where they're running in the forest and the spirits, to help them out, kind of pull them into like the spirit realm. I don't remember the official names for everything anymore, so please forgive me. And then they're just like, you know, talking to the spirits, and I just thought that was really cool. But the reason I disliked this book as a whole, and like the main thing I disliked about this, was it's a colonizer romance. Spoiler warning for the beginning of this book. If you don't want to know and you like still want to read this book, just skip to the next book. You'll see me holding it up. So what happens is this boy is like part of the reason her mom dies. He doesn't fully know what he's doing because he is a child at the time, but he does know that he's helping set up a trap. He knows that much. And like there was something else too, but it's been so long since I've read it. Such unforgivable stuff that I was like, there's no way. Like you can look at that man and be like, yeah, he's hot, I'm into him. Like no, it doesn't make any sense. Like this is her whole thing, upset about her mom being killed in front of her. I really didn't like that, and it really did diminish my enjoyment of the book. The next book I have is In the Event This Doesn't Fall Apart by Shannon Lee Berry. This is a prose and poetry book that details the beginning of her relationship with her boyfriend Dominic. I feel like it's very important to note that they are now fiancés. I give this one a 4.5 stars, which is a really high rating for me in poetry, but that has to do with the fact that I've been following her on Instagram for a while, so I've had time to like, you know, read her stuff, and I just really enjoy it. And also it's like I got to see this relationship develop, and I got this not too long before he proposed, I believe. So what I liked about this book was watching her fall in love. It was really cute. It was so like, you know, wholesome, but also nervous and worrisome, or not worrisome, but like nerve-wracking. I didn't really have like a thing that I disliked about this because I was attached to their relationship. I think that's a reason I like the poetry so much. I don't think it would have hit as hard for me if I wasn't attached to the person. Like I've mentioned before, poetry's pretty hit or miss for me, so that is one thing I did want to mention. But yeah, I didn't have like any solid dislikes. Alright, and then up next I've got Dava Shastri's Last Day. This is about a rich philanthropist who discovers she has cancer and decides she wants to go out on her own terms, which includes dropping the news 2 days before she passes so she can read the obituaries, and isolating her children so they don't see the news. So I gave this one a 3.75 stars, and what I liked about it was all of the different characters. There's such a huge variety because she's got like what, 3 or 4 kids. One of them is polyamorous, one of them's gay, I think 2 of them have kids. Anyways, all that to say, a lot of variety, and there's also a white girlfriend, so we get her perspective because everyone else in this family of course is Indian. There is also a Swedish boyfriend, but I don't think we get his perspective. But what I disliked about this book is because there's so little time, she invites them over, isolates them, drops the news publicly, and then the next day drops it to her family, and then 2 days later she's gone. So because of that, there's not a lot of time to really like have a lot of like meaningful growth with the other characters. So that kind of sucked because they were really interesting and I wanted to see there be meaningful growth. It just kind of felt a little bit rushed because of that, so I do wish we had gotten a little bit more time. And then next up, we've got The Sunshine Court, which is a companion novel to the All for the Game trilogy, which is like The Foxhole Court, The Raven King, and The King's Men. You'd think I'd have them all memorized because I love them, but nope, I don't. But this follows Jean Moreau. This is why I didn't want to say anyone's fucking name. Jean, I'm gonna say it wrong, because it's Jean, isn't it? Do not come for me for that name pronunciation. I know it's wrong. That's just how I say it in my head. I don't read these books aloud, and I'm never gonna say his name again, so don't worry about it. But it follows him after he gets taken from the Ravens by Renee. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I gave it a 4 stars. I initially had given it a 5 stars. After like sitting on it for a bit, I was like, you know what, 4 stars. What I liked about this was the main character. If there's one thing Nora Sakavic knows how to do, it is write a main character that I'm gonna fucking relate to. What I disliked about this book is Nora springing another abuser on a character after that character finally feels comfortable in the place that they're at. We've already done it once. We did not need to do it again, Nora. People can heal without being re-traumatized first. That's all I gotta say. But it didn't need to happen. We didn't need to see him. There was no need for that. All right, how many times can I say the next book is before we all get sick of it? Anyways, the next book is Girls Burn Brighter. This one is about 2 Indian girls who meet in their small village and become friends, but something happens to one of them that ends up tearing them apart and they spend their lives looking for each other. I give this one a 4 stars. I'm gonna talk about what I liked and disliked at the same time because it's the same thing, it's the ending. The first time I read this book, this is a reread for me. The first time I read this book, I threw it at the wall when I finished it and did not pick it up for 5 years. This is the first time I've read it since that first read. It is a good ending, it's very hopeful, but at the time that I read it, it was not what I wanted. So I was pissed. While I still do wish it had just a couple more pages, it is what it is, and I do like that it still has that hope, and it's like that's the whole point. It's like at the end of the day, these 2 girls only have hope that they're gonna make it out of their situations and get to where they need to go. I get it, but also I can be mad about it. Okay, the next book I'm gonna talk about is The Farm. This is a book about a woman who discovers that there's something weird going on in her small Swedish village, and she calls her son to try to, you know, tell him because nobody seems to believe her. But it doesn't seem like she can be trusted because immediately after that phone call, Dad calls to say, hey, don't believe a word your mother says. And that's how this book starts. So I really liked the premise, which, oh, by the way, I give this a 1 star. I thought, oh, hey, that's really cool. You know, one parent calls you and is like, hey, I think I'm in danger. And then the other parent is like, hey, your other parent's going insane. But then it was ruined. What I disliked about this book is written by a man first and foremost. This man wrote about a woman's trauma and then used that to be like, oh, she's crazy. I'm gonna spoil it because I don't care, and if you want to skip ahead, you can, but this book fucking sucked, so don't skip ahead, just listen to me. She's imagining everything because she had been assaulted as a child. It just like really fucking pissed me off, and then the entire time too, son is like, I don't know if I believe her, she sounds crazy, I should just listen to my dad, and it's like, if you weren't even gonna give your mom the benefit of the doubt to begin with, you should have just gone to the police to start because you obviously didn't care. I really fucking hated that book. Okay, and the next book is This Is How You Lose the Time War. This is about 2 agents on opposite sides of a war who begin a correspondence. As they exchange letters, they stop being enemies and start becoming more. I gave this one a 4.5 stars. It was a reread for me. So what I really liked about this is how it's told. I like that we go back and forth between the 2 characters and that we get their letters at the end of the chapters. I think that's really fun. It does play into what I disliked about the book though, which is that it's a little confusing and complicated to get into. Even on this reread, like the first couple, I'm like so confused and I'm just like, what is going on? Next up is Empire of Gold. This is book 3 in the Dava trilogy, and that's all I'm going to tell you about it because I don't want to spoil it. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars, and what I really liked about it is that we get to see more of like the magical creatures and more of like the world because we actually get to see them travel outside of Dava. What I disliked about this is that by this point we are now on book 3. It's been 6 years. Dara's had so much time to learn and be better, and he's still not. And like he's getting there and it takes him time throughout the book, but like it's just like, buddy, come on. You have had doubts in your heart for ages, and I get you were indoctrinated as a child, but come on. He was like my favorite character in the first book, and by the 3rd book I'm like, damn, he's kind of pathetic. And we hate to see it. Okay, so the next book I read is Marked, and I was a little sassy when I wrote down my 2 sentences about this book. I put, the most annoying teenager in the world gets marked to be a vampire. She's just oh so special. I gave this book a 1 star. I liked the first full moon ritual. I thought it was really interesting and cool. What I disliked, there are many things about this book to dislike. But the main thing that I'm gonna share with y'all is that our main character is part Cherokee. I looked it up and I could not confirm that either of the two authors connected to this book are part Cherokee. As far as I can tell, two white women. So take that as you will, because if I go into it now, we will be here for hours and I do not have that kind of time or energy. The next book I read is also a vampire book, but this one was so much better. It's called Switched. It's about two twins who were separated at the age of 1 who find each other at 13. One of them is a vampire. This is a middle grade book. I gave it 4 stars and it was just so cute. I've read this book before. I liked the immediate bond that they had. These two people, they saw each other and they have 2 different aesthetics, so they didn't even realize that they were twins at first, which I thought was kind of funny. But once they realized they were twins, they were immediately like that, and I'm like, love this for them. Is it unrealistic? Probably, but I love this for them. What I disliked though was that the POV changes like mid-chapter. Just start a new chapter. Or like sometimes it would be like the same POV going into the next chapter and it's like, why did we end the chapter? I love a good POV change, just not when they don't make sense. The next book I read was The Wrath and the Dawn. This one is a young adult Arabian Nights retelling where Shahrazad sets out to avenge her best friend by marrying the murderous king. I gave this one a 3.75 stars. So what I liked about this book is how Khalid is super whipped for Shahrazad. Like right off the bat, he was like, I will kill anybody and everybody for you. And we love to see that kind of thing in a man, a fictional man. And he's just like obsessed with her. But what I disliked is how fast Shahrazad falls in love with him. She's avenging her best friend. This is the same problem as Forged by Blood. You have revenge on the brain and yet you still fell in love. Like if I were the best friend, I'd be rolling in my grave. And then right after, I picked up the second of the duology, which is The Rose and the Dagger. I gave this one a 3.75 stars as well. I kind of like the same thing in this one, which is how in love he is with her. Like, it's just great to see. What I disliked about this book was Yrsa's whole storyline, because she, in the first book, was just a little, like, annoying. She's a younger sister, and we don't see much of her. But in this one, she, like, starts off a little more annoying. It's just, like, bad thing after bad thing keeps happening to her. Why do we keep doing this to the younger sisters in books? Like, damn. She could have at least had one thing go right, but nope. Up next is Lavender Clouds. This is a bunch of comics about mental health, and what I really liked about this was the art style. As you can see, it's really cool. The cover's really reflective. Let me show you an inside page so you can get a better idea of what it's like. Look at that. It's just very cute and simple and I like it. What I disliked about this book, which, shocker, I have a dislike. I was expecting it to be like a graphic novel with like an overall plot, but it's just a bunch of like individual comics. It didn't really like ruin my experience. I still had a really good time with it, but that was like my one like dislike. All right, up next we have The Old Willis Place. The Old Willis Place is about 2 kids who live in the woods behind this building and are dealing with a new caregiver arriving. This is the first time that a caregiver has arrived with a child. I gave this one a 3.75 stars. What I liked about this was the build up to the reveal. It was a little obvious, but I still liked it, and it still, you know, had its shock value. What I disliked about this book was that I thought the characters could be a little more fleshed out. They just were very flat. I just feel like there could have been a little bit more to them. They're kids. I feel like kids have a lot to them. So to have a flat child, like, come on. Next up, we've got What We See in the Stars. This is a book about space that combines both science and mythology, and it's so freaking cute. Look at this. Look at these constellations. Like this page of the moon, look at her. Gorgeous. I forgot to mention, but I gave this a 3.75 stars. The only thing I really disliked about this book was it was made post-Pluto demotion. In here, Pluto is a small dwarf and not a planet. And we do hate to see that, but like it is updated, so I mean, we, I guess, do love to see that. That was like the only thing I disliked, and it's not a serious dislike. But are they ever serious dislikes? Next, I read Journal 3, which is the journal from Gravity Falls. If you don't know, in case it wasn't obvious, it is my favorite show. There's more Gravity Falls, like, right off to the side you can't see. I've got an art print, I've got Mabel and Waddles, Funko Pops, I've got Bill, I've got another Bill. I'm obsessed with Gravity Falls. However, this was my first time reading this because, as I mentioned in my dislikes, we're doing this a little backwards. Oh, also, I gave this a 4 stars. As I mentioned in my dislikes, I am very weird about extra content when it comes to my favorite shows. So like the Gravity Falls shorts that are on Disney Plus, never watched them. Took me years to read this, and I only read it because I was like, I have to read this if I want to read the Book of Bill. Yes? Can I help you? You know you can't go in my closet. Okay, but despite being weird about extra content, I did like the extra lore. I thought it was fun getting to learn a little more. Finally getting to know that Dipper's name is Mason. Also, I think it's really funny because Journal 3 basically confirms for me that Ford is asexual. So even though I do think it's hilarious to be like, he fucked the triangle, I'm like, realistically, I don't think he fucked the triangle. I did read the book of Bill, we'll go into it in a bit, but between that, I finished another book, so that one first. What is it, TV? Do you want to be on the camera? Do you want to say hello? I'll ask your mom if it's okay if I post you. Say hello? Mom. Oh, you are saying hello. Next up, we've got Uglies. This is a dystopian society where people go through an operation at 16 to become pretty. We follow Tally in her last months as an ugly. I gave this one a 3 stars. What I really liked about this one was Shay. She was my favorite character of the bunch. I thought she was great. But that also could be because I found Tally one of the most annoying main characters to ever fucking exist, so that could also play a part into it. Then what I disliked was the romance between Tally and David. It just felt completely unnecessary to me. All it did was cause tension between her and Shay. It didn't make sense to me. Tibby agrees. They didn't make any sense. Isn't that right, Tibby? There you have it, folks. What? Can I please finish? I have like 7 books left. Tibby. Alright, and now we can go into the book of Bill. This one is written by Bill while he's in therapy. So I gave it a 4.5 stars. One of my favorite things about it is it did confirm that there is something between Ford and Bill. Like I said, it's hilarious to say he fucked the triangle, so like I will say it. Tibby, please! Tibby! And there was just so much other lore and like things that I loved, like the reference to the dogs from the Inconveniencing and stuff like that. It was all just so fun. The only thing I disliked about this is I'm not the Dipper friend. I don't like research, so having to decode all the messages myself kind of sucked. So shout out to all those Tumblr pages I used that had like half of them decoded by the time I got to this book. You're real ones and I love you. This was great. It really re-sparked my love for Gravity Falls in a way that I was not expecting. Like, I love Gravity Falls, don't get me wrong, but this made it so much better, and this is the first time I've actually been glad about like extra content outside of a show. So, next up we've got Gold. This is a collection of poems by 13th century poet and Islamic theologian Rumi. These have been translated to English by, I'm gonna butcher her first name, Hale? Lisa Gaffori, a poet, translator, and vocalist amongst other things. I gave this one a 3 stars. So what I liked about this book is like his idea of love. I thought it was really beautiful, and the way he talks about it and like the words that were used and like the translation I thought was beautiful. But what I disliked about this book is, again, as poetry is hit or miss for me, half of these poems were kind of eh. Next up we have Ace, what asexuality reveals about desire, society, and the meaning of sex. The title says it all. What more do you want? I give this a 3.5 stars, and what I liked about this was the second half. It really covered a lot of stuff that I hadn't thought about or hadn't considered, or just like stuff I had been stressing about. What I disliked about this book is that there were times where the chapters would get really repetitive. It wasn't like a whole lot, but just like towards the ends of the chapters that would keep happening, and so that was a little annoying. Next up was Mrs. Caliban. This is a woman in a loveless marriage who starts hearing odd messages on the radio, and then one night, a creature breaks out of containment and ends up at her door. I give this one a 3.5 stars. One of the things that I liked about this book is Dorothy, the main character, is not opposed to sleeping with a monster almost immediately. I feel like a lot of self-proclaimed monster fuckers, me included, given an actual monster, would not fuck the monster. So love that for her. You know, she's living her best life, cheating on her husband, sleeping with a monster. We love to see it. What I disliked, however, was those radio messages that I mentioned. They didn't really pay off. Like, she heard a couple weird messages, and then the creature shows up, does his thing, and then he's gone, and she never hears a weird message again. So I felt like that was kind of a whole lot of nothing, you know? Like, we could have done something with that. You set us up there, and we didn't get anything, so that kind of sucked. Next up, we have The First Day of Spring. This is told in 2 points of view. First is Christy at 8 years old after she's just killed a boy, and the other is over a decade later following Julia, Chrissy with a child of her own. I didn't give this book any stars because I barely read it, and so I skimmed through most of it, but I basically finished it, so I gave myself credit for finishing the book. But what I liked is that, like, after 25% Chrissy, the younger version, 8-year-old her, I really liked her character. Like, she's really annoying in the beginning, and like you don't understand anything about her in the beginning, and so it's also like playing into why she's so annoying, but then you like understand her and she starts to make sense and you really like her. She was the only reason I kept going. If it wasn't for 8-year-old Chrissy, I wouldn't have cared about this book anymore. Should have read this before I went into my rant, but what I disliked was everything else. So as you've already heard, everything else kind of sucked. A lot of promise, not enough given. Okay, and now we're on the last 5 books of the year, which at the time I was reading them, I didn't know they were going to be my last 5. They're all the novellas. They're about a cleric who works at an abbey, and basically this cleric just travels, listens to stories, collects, you know, like information to put in the abbey to store, like records. That's just the overall what this like little novella series is about. I'll go into detail with the individual ones, but I just wanted to say that to make it a little easier. So we open with the Empress of Salt and Fortune, and this is where a lake opens up after being closed for years, and so our cleric, Chi, they are nearby, and so they're like, okay, I'll go before I go to this other thing. I gave this one a 4.5 stars. What I liked about it is how the story is told. We are following the cleric, but they're not the ones telling the stories that we're like learning about. Like, they're listening to other people tell those stories. I like the idea of using like oral storytelling traditions in a physical novel or like novella. I think that's really cool. And then what I disliked, and I put this as more of a personal skill issue, but I wasn't fully understanding what was happening when Rabbit first begins telling her story. Like, I've reread this book too, and I still am kind of like iffy, and so I think that, again, that's just a me thing, not a book thing. Next up, we've got When the Tiger Came Down the Mountain, and this is where they are traveling somewhere and they're going up a mountain with some mammoths and they get cornered by tigers. I gave this one a 5 star. What I liked about this is the difference between the 2 versions of the story. With this one, it's like the tigers trap them, and then they're talking about this one specific story, and there's 2 versions of it. There's the tiger version that the tigers are telling, and then there's the human version that our cleric is telling. I thought it was really cool to see the similarities and the differences and like where they like diverge and like come back again, and like we'll go, because like it'll just be like certain things that are different, so it's like it was really cool to just kind of see that. What I disliked in this one was the lack of Almost Brilliant. Almost Brilliant is the cleric's bird who has like a perfect memory. They're really sassy, and I love them in the first book, but they're not in the second one, so that made me a little sad. Up next, we have Into the Riverlands. This is one where the cleric is traveling with 2 sisters and an older married couple, and as they're traveling, they're just talking about stories and what their favorite ones are and stuff like that. And I gave this one a 4.75 stars. What I liked about this one is how each of the novellas has a different focus / theme. With this one, it's all about like how just because a story is told one way doesn't mean the person in that story wants their story to be told that way. What I disliked in this one was the lack in consistency in how the stories are told. Cleric's sitting down, we get the full story. Because they're traveling and things are happening while they travel, we don't get the full story, or like people interrupt because it's a big group. Second to last, we have Mammoths at the Gates. This is where a cleric Chi returns to their home, the Abbey, after 3 years of being out and traveling. I gave this one a 4.5 stars. What I liked about this one was finally getting to see the Singing Hills Abbey, because I think this whole like series is called like the Singing Hills Collection or something. I don't know what it's called. We always talk about how homesick they are, but now we finally get to see home, so that was really cool. What I disliked about this one is seeing them fight with their childhood friend Rue, just because I hate when people fight, but like I did put that I understand why, and I feel like it was important to both of their characters that they have that fight, and I'm not mad about it, but I can still dislike it. And finally, we are on the last one. This is The Brides of High Hill, and this is where Cleric Chi is traveling with a family to their future in-laws home. However, everything is not as it seems once they arrive. I gave this one a 4 stars. What I liked about this one is how misleading it was. The entire time I was like, I don't know what's happening, and like you get there and everything just seems so weird. I genuinely for a moment there was like, is Cleric Chi gonna leave us and stop being a cleric to run away with this girl? Like, I thought this was gonna turn into like, you know, gay lovers. And it was like, holy shit. And what I disliked is something that I've disliked before, and it was the lack of Almost Brilliant. Again, missed the sass. It's not a proper Singing Hills novella if we don't have Almost Brilliant. Once, you know, you read it all, it makes sense as to why Almost Brilliant's not in this one. Same with the other one that Almost Brilliant isn't in. All right, and that was the last book. We made it through them all, and oh my goodness, I didn't think I'd be able to do it. That was so many. Sorry if it felt a little rushed. I was racing against the sun, unfortunately. The one thing that sucks about using natural lighting to light your videos, when it's winter, you lose your light at like 4:30, which is ridiculous. That's it. That's my recent reads. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys had a good year. It's the end of the year. Tell me what your goals are for the new year. I haven't really made goals yet, but one of them is to get more comfortable driving so I can drive myself up to Boulder. I heard the Celestial Tea Factory's up there, and I've also heard that they used to be a cult. I'm very intrigued and I would love to do that. However, I've been scared of driving for the past 2 years, so we have to get over that hurdle first. I hope you guys enjoyed. Sorry if it's a little chaotic. Like I said, racing against the sun here, so I am speeding through this. I will see you guys next year.